So what's the big deal about these fish that you're seeing all over the internet that have human teeth? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about that, why you should be going after these, and the techniques and tactics that you should be using to catch these fish. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Pat from Salt Strong, and the fish that we're talking about is going to be sheepshead. Now, here in the southern United States, wintertime is when these fish get really popular. And the biggest reason why these fish are so popular is a lot of people will tell you that these are some of the best tasting fish that we have in inshore waters. And also, this time of year is when it becomes a lot easier to catch these fish. They're even accessible by land and small vessels like kayaks and stand-up paddle boards. So by the end of this video, my goal is you'll be more familiar with these fish and have a good idea where to target and how to catch them. So let's get right into it. So first thing we need to do is talk about their habits and what they're doing throughout the year and how they vary from the southern United States and the northern United States. So down here in the south, around the Gulf of Mexico, what happens in the wintertime is these fish are looking for warmer water, and the warmer water just happens to be inland. So they're going to start moving into the creeks, and they're going to move in the intercoastal waterways, and they're going to start to school up. So it makes them really easy to catch. But when you get up in the north, you get up around North Carolina and further up north that way, it's actually the opposite. They're going to move in the summertime, because in the summertime, the intercoastal areas are the warmer water. But in the wintertime, the outside areas going out near shore, it's going to be warmer than inshore. So for the anglers up north, really that's a summertime fish. And then everybody down south, it's going to be a wintertime fish. Now these fish do move out to near shore reefs and wrecks to spawn. So during that transition period, it's kind of the same. So around March, April, right around there, depending on where you are in the country, these fish are going to be moving out of those passes or into those passes depending on where they're going to be at, and they're going to spawn near shore. So the best time to catch them is when they're inshore. That way they're schooled up and they're a lot easier to catch. Once they go offshore to spawn, they spread out and it can be difficult to find the fish. Now, speaking of the primary feature of that fish and why the internet is so attracted to them is those human teeth. The reason why they have these human teeth is their diets are mostly crustaceans. So stuff that has hard shells. So we're talking about crabs like fiddler crabs, mangrove crab, mud crabs, and even shrimp. And they use these molar-like teeth to crush that shell to get into them. So they're really dependent on that shellfish type of diet. So that gives us a clue on the types of bait and the types of lures that we need to be using to target these fish. Now, one of the things about targeting these fish is it doesn't take special gear. So if you already have inshore fishing gear, medium power rods in that 6.5 foot to 7.5 foot range, 2,500 to 3,000 sized reels, 10-pound braid, 20-pound leader, this is exactly the equipment that you need to target these fish. So you don't need specialized equipment. Now, I will say fishing tighter to structure, having a shorter rod does have an advantage here, but you don't have to go out and buy one if you don't have one. Your 7.5 foot rods will work fine, but if you do have shorter 6.5 foot rods, 7 foot rods, those are going to be a little bit better for you, tighter and close up to structure. Now there's many different rigs that you can use, but the most popular ones are going to be a Carolina rig. That's the one that's got that sliding weight with the leader on it, fish close to structure. Also using jig heads and vertical fishing is going to be another popular way. Your seasoned sheepshead anglers like the vertical fishing because they can feel the strike a little bit better. Now let's talk about the types of places to look. What we're really looking for is hard structure, and it could be rocks, it could be jetties, it could be docks, it could be bridges. And the older the structure, typically the more growth it's going to have. And this is the type of stuff that the food source that the sheepshead are after, like your little crabs and your little shrimp, like to hang around. So the older the dock is, the better. If you have some new structure that's in an area and it hasn't had time to grow these barnacles or these oysters on there, more than likely they're not going to have sheepshead on it. But that old dock that's been around for a long time, that survived a couple of hurricanes, that's probably going to have more growth on it, and that's going to be a better bet to look for these sheepshead. Now within these structures, there's going to be some places that are better than others. When it comes to boat docks, whenever you get the places of that boat dock where you've got the most amount of pilings together, that's typically the better place. So if you've got a spot that's got 4, 5, or 6 pilings that are really close together, that's where you want to concentrate your efforts. Now on bridges, you're going to find some pilings are going to hold all of the fish where others are not. So just because you go to one bridge piling and you try it for a little while and you don't get any bites, just move down to the next one and move down to the next one until you do. So you could fish one piling, not get anything. You can go to the next piling, and then all of a sudden you're catching all the sheepshead that you want. So make sure and work each one thoroughly. And when you find one, more than likely there's going to be others around. Now let's get into the baits to use. Because they are crustacean eaters, they like these things. Using live natural crabs, so small fiddler crabs, mud crabs, mangrove tree crabs, and even shrimp are great baits to use. But now the artificial lure manufacturers are getting into it, and they're making lures specifically for sheepshead. So a small shrimp imitation like our Prawn Jr. will work well. Also, little crab imitations like the Savage Gear Duratec crab, they make those specifically for sheepshead, and they are hyper realistic, and those are ways to get onto sheepshead if you don't want to use live bait or if you're just looking for a challenge. Speaking of challenge, there is another way you can catch these, and that is fly fishing. So if you're a fly angler, when these fish move up into the flats, you'll actually see them tailing, and they are catchable by fly, but it is super challenging to catch them. So if you're up for it, definitely give that a shot. So if you're in the southern United States, this time of year is the time of year to go after these fish. They're going to be grouped up, they're going to be really predictable, and one cool thing about these fish is the cold fronts really don't affect them as much as other fish. So when the redfish, the trout, and the snook, and the flounder aren't biting, sheepshead often are the savior. You can go after those and still catch them. For more information, if you are an insider, we do have a mini course that's going to go more into depth on the specifics on catching these fish. So make sure and check that out inside the community. As always, I really do appreciate you watching the video. Have a great day, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.